Hey everyone, I never thought I'd be posting something like this, but it feels like the only way to let it out and get some perspective. So here it goes. I'm Rachel, 23 years old, and I have a twin sister named Emily. Growing up, we were always compared to each other. People in our family and even outside it would always talk about how we were two halves of the same coin, how we both grow up to be incredible people, and how proud our parents were of us. Honestly, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. Having someone so similar to me in every way, even down to our features and personality traits. But over time, things changed, and I was left to figure out why I always felt like the backup twin. You see, Emily has always been the golden child. To give you some background, growing up, it wasn't exactly obvious at first. Sure, she was always the more outgoing one, the one who'd get the praise for whatever big win she had, but I didn't think too much of it. We both got our share of attention, and I thought that was how things were supposed to be. But then, as we got older, things started to shift. It wasn't subtle, either. When Emily decided she wanted to attend a prestigious college, a dream school, as everyone called it, our parents were all in. They didn't bat an eye when it came to paying for everything: tuition, housing, textbooks, you name it. The world was hers, and it felt like it was handed to her on a silver platter. Meanwhile, I was stuck applying for every scholarship I could find, taking on a part-time job just to make ends meet, and watching my sister live this carefree life without a single worry about money. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister, and I'm not the type of person to feel jealous or resentful for no reason. But as time went on, I couldn't ignore the fact that I was working myself to the bone, sacrificing so much, and yet my parents never seemed to notice. They never saw how hard I was fighting to keep my head above water. They didn't see the long nights spent studying, the shifts at the diner, or the constant fear that I'd fall short of my goals because I didn't have the same financial support Emily did. It wasn't just the financial stuff, though. No, that was only part of it. What stung more was the way my parents treated us, the way they would talk about Emily like she was some sort of prodigy. They'd say things like, "Oh, Emily is going places. We just know she's going to be the one to change the world." Meanwhile, I'd hear nothing but silence when it came to my own accomplishments. I graduated with honors, too, but I never heard anything more than, "Well, that's expected of you." I tried talking to them about it once. I remember it clearly, sitting down with my mom after a long shift at work, exhausted and frustrated. I told her how I felt like I was drowning while Emily just floated through life with everything handed to her. My mom's response? "Rachel, you just need to try harder. Emily has always had more potential than you." That was it. No reassurance. No empathy. Just cold, blunt words that cut deeper than anything they'd said before. But I didn't give up. I kept going. I graduated college just like Emily did, with debt up to my eyeballs, while Emily was, of course, debt-free. I figured I'd be fine. After all, I had gotten through so much on my own by then. What was a little more debt? What I didn't expect was what came next. When we both graduated, I thought our family would at least acknowledge our shared accomplishments. We'd both spent years in school, working hard, studying late into the night. But no, my parents only cared about Emily's graduation. They didn't even call me to tell me that they were throwing her a big celebration. They had planned this huge party for Emily at one of the nicest venues in town. There would be all our relatives, friends, family friends, the whole shebang. I had no idea it was even happening until one of my cousins mentioned it to me a week before the event. I can't even explain the rage I felt when I realized they hadn't even thought to include me in the celebration. This was supposed to be a celebration of both of our achievements, but instead, they were throwing a huge party for Emily, as if I didn't matter. As if my struggles, my hard work, my sacrifices didn't even deserve to be acknowledged. It felt like a slap in the face. But that's when the idea hit me. If they were going to continue to treat me like I was invisible, if they were going to continue praising Emily for things that were handed to her on a silver platter while I was left to pick up the pieces, then maybe it was time I finally showed them. Maybe it was time I gave them a little dose of reality. I didn't plan on doing anything malicious at first. All I wanted was to make sure that everyone at the celebration knew the truth. I wanted them to see how my parents had been treating me all these years. I wanted everyone to know that the whole golden child act was just that, an act. And Emily? Well, I wasn't about to let her be the center of attention any longer. I decided that if they wanted to throw this lavish, extravagant party for her, then I'd show up, not just as a guest, but as someone with something important to say. So I made plans to attend. I didn't get an invite, but I figured that would be the least of their worries when I showed up. I knew the moment I walked in, everything would change. The day of the party came, and I couldn't help but feel a bit of adrenaline running through me. I put on a nice outfit, the best I could afford, and took a deep breath before heading to the venue. As I walked in, I could already hear the chatter of family members, old friends, and people I hadn't seen in years. The room was full of balloons, banners, and the unmistakable air of celebration. There she was, Emily, standing in the center of it all, smiling and talking to a crowd of people who hung on her every word. My mom spotted me as soon as I walked through the door. Her face went pale for a second before she plastered on a smile and made her way over to me. "Rachel, you weren't invited." I could tell she was flustered, not because she was happy to see me, but because I was ruining her perfect little picture. "I know," I replied coolly, my heart pounding. "But I thought I should be here. After all, I graduated too, didn't I?" She gave me a tight-lipped smile, her eyes flicking to Emily, who was now looking over at us. "This is Emily's day, Rachel. You can celebrate your accomplishments another time. Please, just let her enjoy this." That's when I saw it, the look in Emily's eyes. It wasn't one of understanding or sympathy. No, it was the look of someone who was entitled to this moment. She'd gotten so used to being treated like the queen of the family that she didn't even flinch when she saw me. I turned away from my mother, taking in the scene for a moment before my eyes settled on Emily's proud, smug smile. It was time to make sure everyone knew the truth about how things really worked in our family. I stepped up to the microphone. It wasn't planned. It wasn't rehearsed. But I knew exactly what I had to say. And as the room quieted, all eyes on me, I finally spoke up. "What my parents haven't told you," I began, "is that I've spent the past few years working 2 jobs while going to school. I've been drowning in debt, and they didn't even offer to help. But that's okay, right? Because Emily, here, has always been the favorite, the golden child. You see, this graduation celebration? It's not just about Emily's success. It's about something much bigger. A long history of favoritism and neglect that no one talks about." The silence in the room was deafening. Everyone turned to look at my parents, whose faces had gone pale. Then I said, "I guess that's why I was never invited to this party, huh? After all, you didn't even care to celebrate my graduation. Because why should you? I'm not your golden child, am I?" And that's when the chaos began. The room was still silent for a moment, but I could feel the tension thickening in the air. My parents looked completely stunned, like I'd just slapped them across the face. I wasn't sure if it was the embarrassment of being called out in front of everyone, or if it was the shock that I'd finally had enough and was done playing the quiet, invisible twin. My mom's face flushed red as she scrambled to find words. "Rachel, that's not fair," she stammered, trying to regain control of the situation. We've always supported you in other ways." Her voice was shaking now, and I could tell that she was grasping at straws, trying to salvage her perfect family image in front of all our relatives. But I wasn't having it anymore. I couldn't just stand there and let her gaslight me again. Not today. I looked her in the eyes and said, "Really? Tell me how you've supported me then, because I sure don't remember you paying for any part of my education. I worked my ass off, Mom, and you barely acknowledged any of it." My voice was steady now, almost cold, and I could see my mom shrinking in front of me. The facade was cracking, but the real tension came from the crowd. Our relatives were whispering amongst themselves, glancing between my parents and me. People had always wondered about the dynamics in our family, but no one had ever dared to question it out loud. Now, with the truth hanging in the air like a dark cloud, they didn't know what to think. Some of them looked uncomfortable, others had that look of pity on their faces, and a few of the older relatives looked like they were processing something they had never seen coming. I glanced at Emily then. She was standing there, eyes wide, her smile gone. In its place was confusion and something else I couldn't quite read. Maybe shame? She hadn't expected me to do this. She never had to. As far as she was concerned, I was just the lesser twin who never needed the same recognition because she was always the one who mattered. Her voice finally broke the silence. "Rachel, what are you doing?" she asked, her tone flat, though I could hear a little edge of annoyance seeping through. "This is supposed to be my day, and you're making it all about yourself. This is about my accomplishments, not about whatever this is." I could tell she was trying to stay calm, trying to keep the spotlight on herself, but I saw the cracks. Deep down, I knew Emily wasn't completely ignorant of the favoritism. She'd enjoyed it, sure, but I could tell from her posture that she was starting to feel uncomfortable being the center of it all. The applause and cheers she'd been getting earlier now seemed to be replaced with a feeling of tension, like the room was turning against her, even if they didn't fully understand why. I wasn't done yet. "And you, Emily?" I said, locking eyes with her. You're standing there acting like you didn't know what was going on. But you did. You knew exactly what was happening, how Mom and Dad always made sure you got everything you wanted, how they never once considered what I was going through. It's all about you, isn't it? You've never had to fight for anything. Emily looked taken aback, but instead of apologizing, she seemed to harden. Her lips twisted into a tight, uncomfortable smile as she shifted on her feet. Rachel, stop this. You're making things so awkward. Just let me have my moment, okay? But it was too late to go back. My words were already out in the open, and now the audience, family, and friends were starting to murmur. It was like a slow ripple of realization spread across the room. People were beginning to see what I had seen for years, the way my sister had always been the shining star while I was stuck in the shadows. Then, something shifted in the crowd. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, Sarah, stood up from her seat. Rachel, is this true? She asked, her voice filled with disbelief. I mean, I knew things weren't perfect, but I had no idea your parents were so, well, like that. My heart skipped a beat. Sarah wasn't the first person to speak up, but there was something about her question that felt different. She wasn't just asking for clarification, she was challenging my parents, and that was a big deal. My aunt, who had been quietly sitting at the back of the room, now leaned forward in her chair, nodding slowly as if she were putting the pieces together. Mom's face twisted into a mask of anger as she turned to Sarah. What are you implying, Sarah? She snapped, her voice cold, but it only made the tension in the room grow stronger. My aunt shook her head, raising her hand to silence my mom. No, Marissa, I think we all need to hear this. Rachel, if what you're saying is true, then this whole thing, this celebration, deserves to be called out. My parents froze. For the first time, they weren't the unquestioned authority. The idea that anyone in our family might see through the thin layer of perfection they tried to maintain was like a crack in their foundation. I turned back to Emily. You might think I'm doing this out of spite, but I'm not. I'm doing this because I'm sick of being ignored. I'm doing this because for once, I want you all to see the real story, not the pretty picture they've painted for years. And that's when my mom snapped. Rachel, that's enough, she shouted, her face turning crimson. You're ruining everything. You're embarrassing us in front of our friends, our family. Why would you do this to your sister? Her words were laced with venom now, and I could see the anger bubbling up beneath the surface. But it didn't matter anymore. I'd already said what I needed to say. I'm not ruining anything, I said, my voice steady. You've been ruining it for me my whole life. This is me finally standing up for myself. For once, I'm not the one sitting quietly in the background, wondering why I don't matter. I matter, too. I felt a strange calm wash over me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just relieved. It wasn't the revenge I had originally thought I wanted, but it was still powerful. My parents had finally been forced to see the truth, even if they didn't want to acknowledge it. And maybe, just maybe, this was the moment that would change everything. But as I stood there, feeling the weight of the room's attention on me, I realized something. This wasn't over. Far from it. The confrontation had just begun, and there were still so many pieces left to fall. What would happen next? Would my parents own up to their mistakes, or would they double down on their favoritism? And what about Emily? Would she finally see the truth, or would she continue to live in denial? One thing was certain, I had started something today, and I wasn't about to let it end here. As I stood there, the room still buzzing with the realization of what had just unfolded, I couldn't help but notice the looks from the rest of the family. It wasn't just discomfort anymore. There was genuine anger in their eyes, anger at my parents. Sarah, the cousin who had spoken up earlier, was now visibly fuming. I can't believe you, Marissa, she said, crossing her arms. You've been playing favorites for years, but now we see it. You've never treated Rachel like she mattered. This is ridiculous. My aunt, who had always been somewhat of a quiet observer in our family, shook her head in disbelief. I always thought you were better than that, Marissa, she said softly but firmly. Rachel worked just as hard as Emily, and yet you've treated her like she didn't deserve anything. Mom's face twisted in fury as she turned to Sarah and my aunt, her voice rising to a sharp pitch. You have no idea what you're talking about. This is family business, and you shouldn't be getting involved. But my aunt wasn't having it. You made it everyone's business when you treated Rachel like she was invisible. When you ignored her achievements, her sacrifices. When you let Emily have everything handed to her and left Rachel to deal with the consequences. You can't hide that now. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My parents were being called out, but it felt so surreal that I had to pinch myself. For so many years, they've been the untouchable authority figures in our family. Everyone deferred to them. Everyone treated them like they had everything figured out. But now, the cracks were showing. And not just with me. Others could see the truth too. I saw Emily standing there, still frozen, her face a mixture of confusion and discomfort. She wasn't really processing what was going on, or maybe she just didn't know how to react. Either way, the situation was beyond her control now. Then, my cousin Mark, who had been quietly observing everything, cleared his throat and stood up. "Look," he said, his voice steady but filled with conviction, "I don't care if you're family. What you've done to Rachel isn't right. It's time someone stepped in and made things right. If you're not going to support her, then we will." My heart skipped a beat. What was he talking about? Mark, who had always been the quiet one at family gatherings, was stepping up for me in front of everyone. The others seemed to be agreeing, nodding in agreement, and murmuring their support. Aunt Linda, who had always been kind but distant, added, "Rachel, you've been through a lot. You're not alone in this. If your parents won't help you, we will." My breath caught in my throat. They were offering to help me. These people, who had witnessed my struggles but never directly intervened, were now stepping up to right the wrongs my parents had caused. The weight of their words was overwhelming, and I could feel my chest tighten with emotion. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling slightly. Sarah stepped forward, her face determined. "We're willing to help you pay off your student loans, Rachel. You deserve to be free of that burden. We're not going to let your parents' mistakes define your future." The room fell silent as my parents processed the weight of what had just been said. The humiliation was written all over their faces. I could see the anger building in my mom's eyes, but it wasn't directed at me this time. It was directed at everyone else. "How dare you?" Mom hissed, her voice low and venomous. "You have no right to get involved in our family's finances. You think you can just step in and fix everything like some kind of hero?" My aunt raised an eyebrow. "It's not about fixing anything, Marissa. It's about doing what's right. And what's right is giving Rachel the chance she's deserved all along. You've been blind to her needs for years." Dad, who had been unusually quiet throughout all of this, finally spoke up. His voice was full of irritation. "This is ridiculous. You can't just promise Rachel something like that. It's not how things work. It's our responsibility as parents to decide how we handle these things." Aunt Linda shook her head. "You're missing the point, David. It's not about how you handle it anymore. It's about acknowledging what you've done. Your favoritism, your neglect, and your refusal to see the hard work Rachel put in while you handed Emily everything on a silver platter. Don't act like we don't see it now." The anger in my parents' eyes was clear. Mom was trembling with fury, her mouth twitching as she tried to regain control of the situation. But it was too late. The truth had been laid bare, and there was no hiding behind the facade of the perfect family anymore. "What do you want from us?" Dad demanded, his voice now sharp, desperate. "You think we'll just give Rachel money to make up for everything? She's always been the one who causes drama, the one who's never satisfied." I couldn't let him finish. "Drama? Is that what you think this is? This is me standing up for myself, for once, after you treated me like I wasn't even worth the effort. You think this is about money? No, it's about finally being seen. Finally being treated like I matter." I turned back to my relatives. "Thank you. Thank you all for stepping up when my own parents couldn't. I'll never forget this. But this isn't just about the money. It's about getting out from under the weight of the past. And maybe, just maybe, it's about finally letting go of the idea that Emily is the only one who deserves something from you." The tension in the room was unbearable. My parents were furious, their faces a storm of rage and humiliation, but my family wasn't backing down. They weren't just taking sides, they were making a statement. "We'll make sure Rachel gets the help she deserves," Mark said, his voice steady. "You can't control everything anymore. Not when everyone sees what you've done." The look in my mom's eyes, cold and furious, was one I would never forget. This was only just the beginning, I knew. The battle between my parents and the rest of the family was far from over. But in that moment, I felt like I had finally won something important. My parents were going to have to face the consequences of their actions. And as for me, I wasn't going to let them keep me in the shadows any longer. This was my story now, and I was ready to take control. The weeks since that confrontation have been intense. My parents haven't spoken to me much, and when they do, it's mostly to scold me for airing our dirty laundry in front of the family. They've tried to shift the blame back onto me, saying that I'm trying to destroy the family or that I embarrassed them. But I honestly couldn't care less. Since then, my relatives have kept their word. I've received support, not just financially, but emotionally too. It's been overwhelming, but in the best possible way. My student loans? They're being taken care of slowly but surely, and I don't have to carry that weight anymore. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm actually moving forward. As for Emily, she hasn't really said much about everything that happened. I think she's just trying to distance herself from the fallout, not wanting to get caught in the middle of the family drama. Honestly, I can't blame her, even though it's a bit disappointing. My parents, on the other hand, have tried to play it cool, but I can tell they're furious that the family is rallying behind me. There's a part of me that hopes they understand the consequences of their actions, but I'm not holding my breath. I know they'll never truly change. So now, I'm trying to focus on my future, and for once, I feel like I have control over it. It's a strange feeling finally standing up for myself and having people back me up, but I'm glad I did. The weight is off my shoulders, and I'm ready to take on whatever comes next. But enough about me. What do you all think? Am I the bad guy here? Should I have handled things differently? I'm still trying to process everything myself, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.